here with a review for Dreamgirls, the 2006 musical starring Beyonce, Knowles, Jamie Foxx, and Eddie Murphy. The story follows the rise of R&B music in America during the 1960s and 70s and centers around a girl group called the Dreams, made up of Effie, Dina, and Laurel. During a talent show, they meet their new manager, Curtis, a local car salesman, and together they begin the road towards fame, meeting other singers such as Jimmy Thunder early, and gradually asserting black music into the mainstream during a time when it was not seen as feasible or even correct, and thus leading into a spiraling game of show business, fame, and the ups and downs of it. The cast all around is strong and filled with loads of notable names such as Beyonce, Eddie Murphy, Jamie Foxx, Danny Glover, and of course I couldn't go on without mentioning Jennifer Hudson, who won an Oscar for her performance in this film. And even though she is for all intents and purposes not a trained actress, she did really well here, and I was legitimately impressed. She can sing and she can deliver the necessary emotions, and there were a number of times where I felt for her character and really sympathized with her. And she does have chemistry with both Beyonce and Anika Noni Rhodes, who plays the other girl, Laurel, and you do buy that they are legitimately friends. And speaking of those two, both Beyonce and Anika, who was actually for the most part a stage actress before this film, also do really well, though Anika is undoubtedly the weakest of the three, which is surprising considering out of the two newcomers she's technically the more experienced. However, there are a couple of times where she seems too wide-faced and wide-eyed, and at times feels like she's more playing it the way she would on stage as opposed to acting in a film. On the other hand, Beyonce handles her role well. Of course, she can sing, we already full well know of that, and she does really well in her role. She's never too demanding or imperious, but at the same time, she doesn't underplay it to the point of becoming monotonous or dull, as tends to happen amongst a lot of singers turned actors. Jamie Foxx, of course, is great as always as the smooth, slick, and manipulative car salesman turned manager Curtis. And as for Eddie Murphy in the role of singer James Early Thunder, what can I say? It's Eddie's best performance in years. He shows that he has great acting chops in him, and that his whole shtick still has charm in it. That big goofy smile and over-the-top voice here are perfect for the character, and he can really sing. Plus, later in the film, when the character has his dark point, Eddie pulls it off really well. There's no hamminess or goofiness, he just plays it really straight. And to cap off, Danny Glover as Thunder's manager, being the veteran actor that he is, does the role well, showing us a character who, much like Glover, is a veteran of show business and knows the ins and outs, and is not exactly as wide-eyed or head-on as his younger counterparts. Visually, the film looks really good. It looks just like the 60s, and it has a very slick music video feel to it. It's glossy, it's flashy, it's everything you associate with 60s music and music videos. You've got the neon letters and lighting, the bright, colorful costumes, the over-the-top big hairdos, the flashy suits, the rings, the glamorous nightclubs lit with colored light bulbs. Everything you associate with 60s is here, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. And of course, we couldn't talk about Dreamgirls without, of course, mentioning the music. To say the least, it is fantastic, though it has one minor fault that we'll get into with scripting in a moment. But aside from that, it's an absolute joy to listen to. It's R&B, jazz, pretty much everything that we ever associate with black music of the 60s is here. It's beautiful to listen to, it's well orchestrated, it's got a real nightclub vibe. You can definitely see this as being the sort of thing they would play in nightclubs back then. And the songs in and of themselves are very well written. The lyrics fit the situations really well, and the actors singing only helps. Practically none of the actors here hit a sour note. They're all really good singers. Again, a surprise, especially coming from Eddie. And now the last thing, as always, is the script. Now, this story focuses on show business and fame and the needs and consequences to get it and what happens when you have it. And to be fair, it handles it really well. Now, normally with musicals, the story is really only there as an excuse for the songs to happen, and here it actually went a little bit further than it needed to, and we get a lot of great moments of dialogue and scenes in here. People, when they're not singing, do actually talk like real people who want to become famous. They don't talk in big speeches or soliloquies. They're very ordinary and upfront. You can definitely feel like these characters are real people, and in fact a lot of them are based off of the real life R&B, jazz and other black musicians and producers back then who were trying to get this sort of music into the mainstream during the time of things such as segregation, when it was not popular to do so. The film is structured in 2 acts, much like the musical, so there is a small break in the middle, which is handy and allows for a great middle number, courtesy of Jennifer Hudson, who really pulls it off. The first half focusing on the Dreamettes' rise to fame and power on the music scene, and the second half focusing on what has happened several years later and how they're coping with fame, or in the case of one of them, lack thereof. And as I said before, because these characters talk like real people, they get stressed, they get worried, they miss their friends, sometimes they fight with each other. They don't act as these saints or these movie stereotypes. They're very much believable, and again, that's due to the great work of the performers here, not to mention the songs. However, as I did state before, that leads into one of the film's pitfalls, perhaps its only real pitfall. It's too long. Now, don't get me wrong here. I have nothing against long movies. In fact, I'm the same person, as you full well know, who sat through the 4-hour Gettysburg and loved it. But my issue is when a film is long when it doesn't need to be. The problem here is, though the songs are well written and orchestrated, they're too long. Most film songs are only about 1 or 2 minutes. Here the songs go for 3, 4 and 5 minutes, and this really drags the pacing. Not to mention, 4 new songs were written for this movie by the original team who did the Broadway show. Now, I understand wanting to add more to the movie to make it feel like you're getting more for your buck, not to mention really adding more to the story, but here it just slows things down, and there are plenty of times where I was sitting here watching the movie thinking, okay, I get it. I get what this scene is trying to do. I get what this song is trying to do. Can we please go to the next thing? And while some could argue this is unfair, the thing is, Sweeney Todd arguably had a much better transition to screen from stage because the songs were shortened in that version, and thus you were allowed to keep the story going without butchering the original songs to such a degree that they were unrecognizable. And of course it was done with the blessing of Stephen Sondheim, who wrote the original soundtrack. And of course there's also Hairspray, which was released around the same time as Dreamgirls, and that too had short to the point songs, and it kept the story going. And to me, this film should have followed in those footsteps. It should have been shortened. Some of the songs here should have been cut out. I wouldn't have minded the 4 new songs if they were shorter, but because they're as long as pretty much all the other songs in the piece, it just drags after a while, and you're like, this song is very nice, but it's too long. And the thing is, given how faithful Condon was to the original stage show, it just makes me think, Condon, you're the same man who helped bring Chicago to the screen alongside Rob Marshall. Don't you see what's wrong here? There's a difference between stage and cinema. The thing about stage is the songs have to be long there because you can't see the actors face on unless you're sitting in the front row seats at the bottom, and of course those are really expensive. So you need the songs to be longer to convey more emotion and story. But with a film, you have camera, you have a budget, you have things that you just can't do on theatre, and as a result you can do more, and you don't need to have long songs. Now, that being said, is it a bad film? Certainly not. It's got a lot of pluses going for it. It's the design, the acting, the music. Even though the songs are long, in and of themselves, they're good. They're just a little too long. And at the very least, Condon, even if he didn't cut down the songs, has to be applauded for not creating just a flat stage-to-screen production here and actually making it feel like a film. And so, in conclusion, I must give Dreamgirls a silver star. Though it does suffer from clunky pacing, not helped by unnecessarily long songs, it doesn't change the fact that in and of itself it is a high quality product. The acting, the music, the costuming, the design, all that comes together to create a very enjoyable experience, if one that may wear on your nerves.